Hi and welcome to Toyota Prius first, second, third and fourth generation. This year Toyota is celebrating 20 years of hybrid drivetrains. During this time, over 10 million hybrid Toyotas and Lexuses were sold worldwide. This is why I was invited to Hungary to drink some wine and to drive all four Priuses. So anyway, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the future. At least the future according to Toyota 20 years ago. This is a 1997 original, first owner, Toyota Prius, and it's absolutely cute, fun, and comfortable. I didn't think I would say this, but it's a very comfortable car for kind of potting along. Definitely not for fast driving, but it's relatively fun to drive. You have this feeling of driving like in a bubble. You're sitting up high, there is a lot of glass, there is a lot of technology. I mean, there is an energy monitor, there are arrows going back and forth showing you battery wheels and now it's making energy, now it's using energy. Brilliant. You really feel like in the future. There is this signature speedo under the windshield. That's something we will see in all next Priuses in the future. It's kind of like a head-up display, even though later models did get head-up display besides this. There is automatic climate control. There is a tape deck. Yeah! Give me AC/DC, because this is... lame joke, right? Anyway, there is a very strange sort of gear lever for the automatic, or rather planetary, gearbox. Yes, in later models it's even stranger, but this is still like a kind of physical shifter. Anyway, I absolutely adore this car, how it looks, how it feels. It's not fast at all. This car is actually about 20 years old. It's property of one of Toyota Motor Poland employees, and for many years it was like a kind of novelty, just kind of thrashed around by Toyota employees, showing off, hey look, this is the old Prius. It's been given a thorough cosmetic refresh, so they fixed all the dents outside, they've replaced headlights because they were all kind of misty and stuff. But the engine, the mechanics of this car are still original. This car still has original batteries. So if you're wondering what's happening to these batteries, the replacement rate is very, very low. It's maybe 1%, maybe less of batteries that need replacement over the years. And what happens to them? Well, they are recycled as much as they can. So Toyota will use all the sort of expensive metals that are inside there and recycle them to make more batteries. The cells, which are still okay, are refurbished and used as auxiliary or backup energy storage in Japan, for example, where there are earthquakes and people have this kind of backup energy in their homes. So 20 years later, this thing still drives. It's no problem. It doesn't feel like a 20-year-old car. Now, this car was produced between 1997 and 2003. The car was supposed to use 4.5 liters per 100 kilometers, but that was later verified, revised to around 5.5 liters. This may not sound very impressive by European standards, but in the US, where clients are used to guzzling cars, 43 mpg must have been quite a result. This car was powered by a 1.5 liter petrol engine, producing about 60 horsepower before the facelift and about 70 after the facelift, and there was an electric motor which was first 40 horsepower and after the facelift 44 horsepower. This is probably the least known Prius, but 2 decades later it still drives. The future is here. And now we get into the second generation Prius produced between 2003 and 2009, and I suspect for many people this is the Prius. The controversial shape is all about function because it allowed for a low drag coefficient of just 0.26, a result a handful of cars have matched or exceeded to this day. An average car has a drag coefficient of about 0.30, 0.35. Numerous celebrities showed off their eco-credentials driving this second generation Prius to the red carpet, which didn't stop them from having something more exotic and less ecological in their garage. Under the bonnet is still a 1.5 liter petrol engine, but more powerful. Also, the electric motor is more powerful. If driven gently, the second generation Prius will use around 4.5 liters per 100 kilometers. How is it to drive? How do I feel behind the wheel? Well, first of all, I'm sitting rather high. The seat is in its lowest position, but that must have been comfortable, especially for older people. This car, it still feels like the future 15 years later. Sure, it's loud, the petrol engine keeps kicking in, but the way this monitor here protrudes and the way it's all touch screen and electronic and it shows me the energy flow and stuff, how I control the climate from here, it all looks very futuristic. Now this Yaris Speedo here, because I'm sure it's from a Yaris, which has this kind of 3D effect. It looks like it's down there somewhere under the windshield. It's almost like a head-up display. It all makes me feel like I'm in the future, and I'm absolutely not surprised that people who got into this car back in 2003, they saw it and they said, "Whoa, this is like Back to the Future, we gotta have this." And yeah, it's still a very good car to drive. I would say it's better to drive than the third generation. It's more fun, more responsive. I feel more involved in the driving process. I'm not sure whether it's good for my fuel economy, but I feel I could thrash this car around, and I'm not surprised that Polish taxi drivers decided to ditch their 1.9 TDI Volkswagens and get these cars. These, if they're in good nick, they can be a very good taxi. There is still a lot of place in the back, a huge boot. What's not to like? I love it. I absolutely love it. I seriously could have this car, own one, and yeah, show off my eco credentials. This is crazy, but I absolutely love this car. Third generation Prius debuted in 2009 and was in production until 2015. Its design was more contemporary, whether it was others who caught up with Toyota or whether Toyota made the Prius to look more like everyone else. I leave it for you to decide. This generation also featured a new powertrain with a 1.8 liter petrol engine, which allowed for more economical motorway driving. Together with an electric motor, this car produces 134 horsepower. And yes, it's relatively brisk actually. Elements of the dashboard were made from some sort of bioplastic. Yes, I know it sounds like an oxymoron. Anyway, if you can't take eco driving anymore, you can probably just bite into them and you'll be fine. So how does it drive? Well, to me, it's still very much technology and development. I would say everything before Prius 4 is just development. This car it feels still very basic. Getting it to drive in EV mode only is quite difficult, even though there is an EV button, so I could force it to drive in EV mode for about 2 kilometers. But getting it to just kind of cruise in electric hybrid mode, it just takes a lot of practice. It's not as easy as in the new Prius. I remember I drove this car for maybe 1,000 kilometers or so around Poland, and in the end I got fuel economy of 4.6 liters per 100 kilometers. I mean, that kind of fuel economy I could get with a diesel, and I was really careful with it. So this is still a car that requires a lot of effort. To make this car a bit easier and more pleasant to drive, there was another first in the third generation, and that was a plug-in hybrid version, which allowed you to drive up to 25 kilometers in pure electric mode. How it worked, watch my first drive video from many years ago to see how was the plug-in hybrid. And the fourth generation Prius plug-in hybrid is the reason I'm here in Hungary today. You can watch my fourth generation Prius review by clicking somewhere around here on the screen, but a few words about the plug-in hybrid version. So this time, this car can do up to 50 kilometers in EV mode. Realistically, it's more like 40. On the plus side, charging from a 230 volt socket takes between 2 and 3 hours. You can also charge the batteries while driving, and I'm not talking about coasting, but I'm talking about a sort of generator. So you can press a button down here next to the gear lever. This is an HVEV button. Press it for a couple of seconds, because this is a decision that cannot be taken lightly, and a generator kicks in. So I'm currently driving, and the petrol engine is powering the front wheels, and it's also generating electricity, and it will actually charge the batteries full within about 100 kilometers. So if you're on a motorway between two cities, you can charge the batteries and drive in EV mode around the city. Now, despite extra weight, Prius plug-in hybrid feels more dynamic than a regular Prius, and don't mind this car overtaking me right now. This car is actually quite brisk, especially in electric mode. Switching from electric to hybrid mode, I can feel the car becoming very sluggish. Toyota claims Prius PHEV will use 1 liter per 100 kilometers in kind of EV test cycle. On a 114 kilometer route through hilly terrain, no motorways though, I got less than 2 liters per 100 kilometers. According to the trip computer, that was 1.8. In fact, Toyota read some data from a little magic box installed in the car, and it turned out that me and my colleague, we used 1.4 liters per 100 kilometers with average speed of about 50 kilometers per hour. The AC was turned off though. Prices of the new Prius plug-in hybrid start at 37,500 euro in Germany. That's 5,000 more than top spec regular Prius. Do you think a plug-in hybrid is a better idea than a regular hybrid? Let me know in the comments below. Perhaps, a little bird sang, Toyota will launch more plug-in hybrids in the future. Possibly there may be a plug-in hybrid RAV4, who knows? Anyway, let me know in the comments below if you think it's a good idea, if you would buy a plug-in hybrid like this, or perhaps a different plug-in hybrid. BMW 330e is a pretty good plug-in hybrid. Anyway, let me know in the comments below. Share, rate, subscribe. New episodes, regular episodes, reviews every Friday. But if you want to be up to date with extra stuff I put on the channel, like this episode here, click the little bell icon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.